My sister used my name to take my car and open debts while I was in surgery, and she thought I'd stay quiet, but my legal payback terrified her. Hi there, I'm Eileen. Right after my surgery, I came home to find my car gone. And my sister, she just smiled and said, "You weren't using it anyway." That moment, it was just the start. Turns out she'd been using my name for loans, credit cards, even car insurance, all behind my back. And my parents, they knew. They excused it. Said I was overreacting. Said it was just family. But how do you fight back when your whole family's in on the lie? And how far would they go if you finally said no? I came home expecting silence, not betrayal. The hospital had discharged me that morning. Thyroid surgery, outpatient, nothing glamorous. I was groggy but upright, still in my post-op sweats with gauze along my neck. My neighbor, Mrs. Carter, dropped me off. She offered to walk me up, but I lied and said I was fine. I wasn't. The apartment was colder than I remembered. No flowers, no welcome back card on the counter, just stale air and unopened mail. I stood still for a second, letting my body remember what home was supposed to feel like. Then I reached for my keys, out of muscle memory more than anything. The hook by the door was empty. I blinked. Maybe I left them in the hospital bag. I checked the side pocket. Nothing. A tight pulse started building in the center of my chest. I opened the hall closet. Nope. Then I turned toward the garage. The click of the door unlocking sounded loud in the stillness. I pulled it open and stared at the vacant spot where my Subaru usually sat. Gone. At first, I thought it had been towed, but that didn't make sense. My HOA hadn't sent any notice. No citations. The garage door had been closed the entire time. I stepped outside, scanning the quiet cul-de-sac. All the neighbors' cars were parked in their usual places. Nothing looked disturbed, nothing stolen except mine. The cold from the floor started to creep up through my socks. I backed into the kitchen, grabbed my phone with shaky fingers, and hit Mara. She picked up on the third ring, laughing about something in the background. "Hey, what's up?" I cut to the point. "Where's my car?" There was a pause, then a loud sip followed by, "Oh yeah, I took it." "You weren't using it anyway." Silence on my end. She kept going, light as ever. "Joni had practice. I didn't think you'd mind. You were, like, out of it, right? You didn't think to ask?" My voice came out lower than I expected. "I figured it was fine. I mean, family borrows stuff." Relax. That word, relax, hit like an elbow to the ribs. "I was in surgery, Mara, not on vacation." "Exactly," she said, like it proved her point. "So you weren't driving." I ended the call without saying goodbye. I didn't even realize I'd sat down on the kitchen floor until my back touched the cabinets. My hands were clammy. My chest was tight. And for the first time since the surgery, I felt something stronger than painkillers. Disbelief. Later that night, I opened Instagram. Don't ask me why. I should have known better. There she was. Mara had posted a boomerang of Joni in my car, twisting in the front seat with oversized sunglasses and a milkshake. The caption, "Cheer Mom Life #blessed. But that wasn't the worst part. The previous post was a photo of me in the hospital bed, eyes shut, oxygen still in my nose, taken from the foot of my bed without me knowing. The caption read, "Holding down the fort while big sis heals #family first #sacrifice. The likes rolled in. You're such a good sister. Joni is lucky to have you. I wish my family was like this." I felt sick. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling until the room blurred. Did they even think of me as a person anymore, or just a backup plan? At some point, I turned off all the lights and sat on the bedroom floor in silence. My breath came uneven, like my lungs couldn't keep up. It wasn't just about the car. It was the entitlement, the assumption that my life was open access just because I was quiet, reliable. People don't steal from strangers. They steal from the ones who won't fight back. I whispered into the dark, did they ever actually take care of me, or did they just take? No one answered, not even my reflection in the window. The room smelled like antiseptic and winter air. My body was healing. My trust, that was something else entirely. The worst part wasn't that my car was gone. It was that she smiled like I should be grateful. Sleep didn't come easy after that night, not because of the pain, my stitches barely pulled now, but because everything in me felt invaded, like my life had been rearranged without my permission and no one even thought I'd notice. Around 2 a.m., I gave up pretending I could rest. The street outside was quiet, the kind of silence that made my thoughts louder. I got out of bed, pulled on a hoodie, and padded to the kitchen where my laptop still sat charging. A part of me already knew something wasn't right. The way Mara smiled, the confidence in her tone, that wasn't someone who just borrowed a car. That was someone who knew exactly how far she'd gone. I opened the DMV site. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Just curiosity, I told myself. Just making sure. I typed in my plate number, then my VIN. The screen loaded slowly, one bar at a time, and then it hit me. Lien holder, rapid pawn and auto loans. Lien date, February 11, 2025. Owner, Eileen S. Kravitz. I stared at the screen, blinking. I read it again and again. My name was still there, but now it was attached to a collateral agreement. That's not borrowing. That's pawning. That's intentional. I called the number listed. It rang twice. Then a tired voice answered, "Yeah, rapid pawn, after hours line." "I think someone transferred my car title under my name without permission," I said, voice shaky. The guy didn't sound surprised. "What's the name on file?" I told him. A pause, then, "Yeah, that came through last week." Eileen S. Kravitz brought in the car and signed docs. All good on our end. He didn't know I was Eileen. My mouth went dry. "Can I see those documents?" "Sure. Send me an email from the registered account and we'll send a scan." I hung up, heart pounding, and typed out a request faster than I thought my hands could move. 10 minutes later, a PDF landed in my inbox. There it was, a contract, a signature. My signature, almost. It was close. Too close, but cleaner, straighter, like someone had practiced, like someone had traced me. Proof of ID provided, it said. Attached was a scan of my actual driver's license. I stared at that copy, trying to breathe, trying to remember how this was even possible. And then I did. Last summer, printer jam at the library. I needed to upload my ID for a background check at work. Mara had been with me. She'd offered to help. "Just email it to yourself and print it from mine," she said, like it was no big deal. I hadn't thought twice. But now I was seeing it. That was the start of the paper trail. Sick to my stomach, I clicked open another tab. Credit Karma. I hadn't checked my credit in months. No reason to. I barely spent. I lived simple. The dashboard took a second to load, and then, Nebula Rewards Visa opened July 2024. Balance, $1,926.34. Status, past due 30+ days. Account holder, Eileen S. Kravitz. Billing address, 2129 Briar Hollow, Mara's house. My breath stilled. I clicked through the statements. Streaming subscriptions, online shopping, something called Bounce Heaven Rentals, a kid's party place. She wasn't just using my car. She was living a double life with my credit. This wasn't a moment. It was a method. I sat there frozen, bathed in the blue light of the screen while my cat rubbed against my shin for attention I couldn't give. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was past tears, past anger even. I was entering something else, some space beyond betrayal where the only thing louder than shock is clarity. My voice came out quiet, hoarse. She didn't just borrow my car. She borrowed my life. My brain flicked back to a birthday dinner years ago, my 33rd. Mara hadn't gotten me a card. She'd shown up late with Joni and said, "Hey, I hate to ask, but can you spot me $300 for school stuff? I swear I'll pay you next week." Of course I did. I always did. That was the first lie. I just hadn't recognized it as one back then. Now, sitting at my kitchen table in the middle of the night, staring at digital proof of how far this had gone. I knew better. I wasn't overreacting. I was uncovering a pattern. By the time Saturday rolled around, I was emotionally hollow but physically better. The bruising on my neck had started to fade. The stitches itched less, and the surgical glue flaked like old regret. Joni's sleepover had been planned months ago, before all of this, before I knew my sister was capable of fraud. I'd forgotten about it until Mara texted, "Still good for tonight?" She's got her overnight bag. For a second I considered canceling. I had every right to. But Joni wasn't the problem. She was just 12, smart, sweet, too observant for her own good. And I didn't want to punish her for her mother's decisions. So I said yes. I borrowed Dana's car, she lives one floor down in the same building, and swung by to pick Joni up a little after 4:30. The kid came flying out the front door like a sparkler on the 4th of July, hot pink sneakers flashing, glitter lip gloss catching the late afternoon sun, one hand waving so hard I thought her skinny arm might detach. You'd have thought we were headed to a carnival instead of just another Tuesday drive home. The first 10 minutes were pure Joni radio. She talked a mile a minute about who got in trouble for passing notes, which 6th grade boy now smelled like his dad's cologne, and how Mrs. Lang's laugh sounded exactly like a hyena with asthma. I nodded along, murmured the occasional my knuckles whitening around Dana's steering wheel. I wasn't really listening to the gossip. I was waiting for the real bomb to drop, the one the grown-ups had apparently coached her not to drop. Kids, though, they always spill. It came right after she dug a crumpled granola bar out of her backpack. "Mom said your car's in the shop getting fixed," she announced through a mouthful of oats and fake chocolate. "But she also told Grandma you probably don't feel like driving right now anyway, so it all worked out perfect." I flicked my eyes off the road for half a second. "She told you that?" Uh-huh. Crumbs rained onto Dana's upholstery. "She said you're kind of sick or whatever. So she's just helping until you feel better." Sick. The word floated between us like exhaust. My fingers tightened until the fake leather squeaked. "Did your mom happen to mention why she didn't ask me if she could borrow my car first?" Joni scrunched her nose, thinking hard. 11 years old and already learning how to navigate the family minefield. "She said family doesn't always have to ask permission. That you'd understand." "You always do." That last sentence came out too smooth, too adult. Somebody had rehearsed her. After that, the car filled with the kind of silence that has weight. It pressed against the windows, fogged the glass from the inside, made the pop songs on the radio sound like they were playing underwater. Joni stared out her window. I stared out mine. Neither of us tried to fix it. Later that night, after Joni had taken the world's longest shower, singing every song from the new Disney musical at top volume, and finally passed out on my couch under a blanket printed with cartoon avocados, I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, speakerphone crackling like it always does now. She claims it's because her hands are usually wet from dishes. I think she just likes an audience. "Hi, sweetheart. How's my favorite niece doing?" "She's asleep on my couch wearing a towel turban," I said. "But that's not why I'm calling." A tiny pause, the kind that tells you everything. "Oh. Okay." I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Mom, I know what Mara did. She didn't borrow my car. She pawned it. Forged my signature, used my ID, the whole thing. That's not borrowing, that's theft." Another pause, longer this time. Then the soft, infuriating sigh I've heard my entire life. "Honey, your sister's plate is very full right now. Joni's got dance on Mondays, soccer Tuesdays and Thursdays, violin on Wednesdays." "I'm aware of the schedule, Mom. I'm the free Uber 3 days a week. I'm just saying the bills pile up fast when you're a single mom. That car was sitting in your spot half the time anyway. It was in my name. I was still making payments on it." "Well, you've been struggling lately. We all noticed." Mara thought she could commit fraud and I'd just smile and say family first? My voice climbed higher than I meant it to. Joni shifted on the couch but didn't wake up. I lowered it again. "I'm not a communal emergency fund with wheels." Mom's tone went placating, That syrupy voice she used when we were kids and one of us had bitten the other. Nobody's saying you are, sweetheart. We're just trying to keep everything afloat. Remember when you were 22 and couldn't make rent? Who paid for the apartment those 3 months? You did, I said through my teeth. And I paid you back every cent plus interest, even though you told me not to. That's not the point. It literally is the point. You helped me when I asked. Mara didn't ask. She stole. She borrowed in a moment of desperation. There's a legal difference, Mom. One comes with possible jail time. Don't be dramatic. I laughed, sharp and ugly. Dramatic. Right. The car I saved for 2 years to buy, the one I needed for job interviews next week, the one currently sitting in some pawn shop off Route 9 with a price tag on it, that's just me being dramatic. Honey, it's a car. It's metal and plastic. Family is forever. Family is apparently a one-way street where I keep giving and Mara keeps taking. That's not fair. None of this is fair. The words exploded out before I could stop them. Joni stirred again, mumbling something about sparkly unicorns. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear and dropped my voice to a hiss. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to stand in the DMV today and hear the clerk casually mention that my title had been transferred last week? To hear that my own sister walked in with a forged power of attorney and sold my property out from under me? Mom was quiet so long I thought the call dropped. Then, she was going to pay it back. With what? The money she got from selling it? She's your sister. She's a thief. She's blood. Blood doesn't get to commit felonies and call it love. Another sigh, heavier this time, laced with the exhaustion she liked to remind us she carried for all of us. Look. I'm not saying what she did was right. I'm saying the world isn't black and white. We've always taken care of each other in this family. Sometimes that care looks messy. Messy is forgetting to pick someone up from practice. Messy isn't Grand Theft Auto. You're blowing this out of proportion. I closed my eyes. The living room smelled like Joni's strawberry shampoo and the microwave popcorn we'd demolished earlier. Somewhere in the building a dog barked. Normal Tuesday night sounds. My entire life felt like it was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't name. Mom, I said slowly, tasting metal where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek raw, I need you to hear me. I am not the family ATM. I am not the backup plan. I am not required to set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm just because we share DNA. If Mara needed help, she could have asked. She chose not to. And you choosing to defend her right now? That tells me exactly where I stand. Silence again. Then, softer, you're really going to press charges against your own sister? The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked over at Joni, one foot sticking out from the avocado blanket, glitter still clinging to her mouth from whatever craft project lip gloss she'd smeared on after dinner. 11 years old and already learning that love sometimes comes with strings thick as chains. I haven't decided what I'm going to do, I said finally. But for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. And if that makes me the villain in this family, so be it. I hung up before she could answer. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and Joni's soft breathing. I stood there a long time, phone still warm in my hand, feeling the rubber band inside my chest finally snap all the way through. Just a car, Mom had said. No. It was never just a car. It was the first thing I ever owned outright. The first thing that was mine and mine alone, not handed down, not shared, not borrowed against my will. And now it was gone, pawned by the person who was supposed to love me most, justified by the woman who taught us both what love was supposed to look like. I walked over to the couch and gently pulled the blanket higher over Joni's shoulders. She sighed in her sleep, rolled toward me, one small hand reaching out like she was looking for something to hold on to. I let her find my fingers. Family, I thought. The word tasted different now. Sharper. Less like a promise and more like a warning. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat at the kitchen counter, lit only by the microwave clock. Joni had fallen asleep in the living room. I could hear the soft hum of animated voices and her rhythmic breathing, peaceful, untouched. I opened my laptop. There, in a folder marked personal, I started a spreadsheet. Date, amount, reason, outcome, 2019 $900, covered Mara's rent, never repaid 2020 $220, Joni's birthday bike, no thanks 2022, $480, mom's fridge broke, later found out it didn't. Line after line, I wrote down every memory I had once convinced myself to forget. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. A breadcrumb trail for my own clarity. I whispered, it's just a car. Then why does it feel like I was stolen too? The numbers didn't lie. Neither did the pattern. If I was overreacting, why did the math finally make sense? The spreadsheet stayed open on my screen long after I stopped typing. I wasn't adding numbers anymore. I was staring through them, the kind of stare that isn't about seeing, but about absorbing the reality you've ignored for too long. That Sunday, my parents invited me for dinner. Part of me wanted to decline, to fake a migraine or blame recovery, but I showed up anyway. Maybe I needed to confirm what I already suspected. Maybe I was testing whether the betrayal was a fluke or a family sport. I arrived just before 5. The house smelled like pot roast and rosemary, Delma's way of saying nothing's wrong without ever saying it. Mara was already there, barefoot in the living room with a glass of white wine, laughing at something Joni said. No one brought up the car. No one mentioned the pawn shop or the forged signature or the fact that they'd all gone silent for days after I found out. It was like walking into a theater mid-play. Everyone had already memorized their lines, pretending mine didn't matter. As I took off my coat in the kitchen, something caught my eye, a key ring hanging by the pantry door. Familiar bright blue fob, slight chip on the edge. My spare. Dad, I called into the hallway. Is that my car key? He appeared around the corner, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Yeah, Mara needed it. You were recovering. Figured it'd save time. I stared at him. That wasn't your call to make. He blinked, then shrugged like I'd commented on the weather. She's your sister. We thought you'd be okay with it. I opened my mouth, but Velma swooped in, her voice sweetened like overripe fruit. Let's not turn this into a thing, Eileen. Sit. Eat. Everyone's hungry. I sat, but the food tasted like paper. Halfway through dinner, I put my fork down. Did you know she pawned it? Mara barely looked up. God, you're still on that. Delma's wine glass clinked softly as she set it down. It's not like she drove it across the border, sweetheart. She needed help. That's what family does, without asking. She knew you wouldn't say no. I turned to Mara. Did you think I'd find out? Mara took a sip. But honestly, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just a car. My jaw clenched. No, it's a boundary you stomped on, and now you're acting like I should apologize for noticing. Delma leaned in slightly. You've always been more delicate, Eileen. Let's not escalate this. There it was. That word, delicate. Not sensitive, not thoughtful, not even calm, just delicate. Like I was too fragile to function, like any resistance from me was some nervous breakdown in disguise. I chewed that word the rest of dinner. Didn't swallow it. That night, after dropping Joni back home, I texted someone I hadn't talked to in months. Sophie. Hey, I typed. I'm sorry I let them push you away. You were right, she replied in under a minute. Still here. You didn't push me. They did. What happened? Flashback hit like a slap. Sophie telling me 2 years ago, Mara doesn't ask. She assumes. That's not love. That's use. Back then, Delma had called Sophie a little too invested in my life, told me she was stirring tension. I had pulled away, chose quiet, chose loyalty over truth. Now I saw what Sophie had seen all along. Back home, I opened my inbox. Created a new draft. Subject, boundary. 1 sentence, don't use anything with my name on it again. Not my key. Not my kindness. I didn't hit send. Not yet. But I saved it. Something shifted. Not loud. Not violent. But permanent. They didn't steal my car. They stole my voice. And I was just now getting it back. By the time the weekend came, my inbox was flooded with junk mail, delivery alerts, and digital coupons I never signed up for. I was halfway through deleting them when one email stopped me cold. Subject: Your Zenith Auto Insurance Policy Confirmation. I didn't remember opening a policy. Inside the message was a warm corporate greeting thanking me for enrolling in coverage for a 2021 Dodge Grand Caravan. I didn't own a Dodge anything. Under policy holder, it read, Eileen S. Kravitz, my name, my full legal name again. I felt that punch in the chest all over again, like I was back at the hospital, waking up groggy, trusting everyone to do right by me. I called the number listed. A woman named Gina picked up, friendly Midwest accent. Yes, we processed that policy online. We have the SSN, your driver's license, the registered email, all matched. Can you tell me the address on file? She read it. It wasn't mine. It was Mara's. I barely remembered hanging up. I just stood there staring at the microwave clock like it could fix this. It wasn't even about the car anymore. This was my identity. And she was wearing it like a borrowed coat. I didn't text. I didn't give her a heads up. I called. Mara picked up on the third ring. Hey, what now? You opened a new insurance policy in my name. A pause, then laughter. Oh my God. Again with this? You really need to chill. It's insurance, Eileen. It's not like I bought a house in your name. You didn't ask. You don't even drive that much. I figured. That's called fraud. Her tone sharpened. Family doesn't press charges. I could hear Joni laughing in the background. A sitcom played from the TV. Or do you think you're better than us now? She added. I took a slow breath. No. I finally understand that I deserve better. She hung up, and I didn't call back. That night, I sat on my couch scrolling mindlessly, trying to distract myself, when a text came in from Lena, my cousin. Hey, everything okay? Mom said you've been kind of off since surgery. Then one from Aunt Dorothy, praying for your mental clarity, sweet girl. You're loved even when you're not yourself. I blinked at the screen. My hands started shaking, not from sadness, from fury. They were reframing the narrative, turning me into the unstable one again. Delma hadn't just dismissed my pain at dinner. She was now feeding it to the entire family, spoonful by spoonful, garnished with concern. That was her trick. Always had been. Soft lies served with sweet tones. She's going through a lot. She's just sensitive. She means well, but she overthinks things. It was character assassination with a smile. And the worst part, it worked, because I'd spent years being polite, forgiving, dull enough that any hint of fire now looked like a meltdown. I stared at my phone for a full minute before opening another tab on my browser, Asheville Family Law Attorneys. I found one with quiet reviews, no flashy slogans, just facts. I dialed the number. My voice was calm. My spine wasn't. Hi, I need to speak to someone about repeated misuse of my personal information. The receptionist asked, Are you referring to fraud? Yes, I said. By my sister. She paused. Has this happened more than once? Yes, I said again. And I'm done letting it slide. I hung up, walked to the kitchen, poured water, no wine, no tears, just resolve. I opened my drafts folder and reread the email I hadn't sent to Mara, the one about boundaries, the one I thought was enough. But this time I wouldn't just say no. This time, the boundary wasn't emotional. It was legal. By the following Thursday, I had it in my hands, a folder, a real one. Not a Google Drive file or a shared note, but a thick manila folder, the kind that feels heavier than it should, the kind with weight beyond the paper inside. Its cover was stamped with the name of the law office in faded blue ink, but it might as well have been branded with every betrayal I'd endured in silence. Inside were months of careful documentation, printouts, statements, screenshots. Each page a brick in the wall I was finally building between me and them. Every transaction I never made. Every email sent under my name but not by my hand. Every time someone said I was overreacting or just being dramatic. Those dismissals were in there too, coded in the evidence I'd collected. I carried years of silence into that building, Cartwright Law, second floor. No music in the waiting room, just the slow, repetitive tick of a cheap plastic clock mounted above the door. I remember that clock clearly. It ticked like it was mocking me, measuring the weight of time I'd spent not speaking up. I sat stiffly in the waiting chair, gripping the folder like it might try to slip away from me. My palms were damp, my back ached from tension, but I didn't loosen my grip. The receptionist, a woman with a tidy bun and kind eyes that didn't ask questions, called my name. I followed her down a short hallway lined with framed certificates and legal accolades. We reached a modest office, no frills, just a desk, a few bookshelves, and a man behind the desk who looked exactly how I imagined someone named Mr. Cartwright would look: tweed blazer, wireframes, reading glasses low on his nose, a clean desk with only a notepad and a legal pad beside it. No small talk, no "how are you?" or "what brings you in?" Just a slight nod and a hand extended toward the folder I was still gripping like a lifeline. He sat, opened it, and started reading. Page by page he flipped, skimmed, paused, made occasional notes in the margins with a ballpoint pen. After a while he murmured, more to himself than to me, "This is good. Chronological, detailed, even includes IP matches." "You've been very thorough," I answered without hesitation. I had to be. He glanced up at me briefly, not with sympathy, but with something else, a quiet acknowledgement, like he'd seen this pattern before, like he already knew the type of people I was up against. "You've been exploited," he said calmly, "systematically. And they counted on your silence." I nodded. My hands were still, jaw locked. I wasn't crying anymore. That phase had passed. So I asked, voice quieter than I expected, "Do I have a case?" He looked up again, no hesitation. "It's airtight." That night I sat on the floor of my living room, legs crossed under me, surrounded by papers, insurance claims I didn't recognize, credit card statements showing purchases in cities I'd never visited, loan documents I'd never signed, all of it fanned out like a morbid jigsaw puzzle. The blue light from my laptop screen lit the room. I scrolled through archived emails, years worth, some flagged, some still unread. There, a receipt for a mattress I never ordered, shipped to Mara's address, an online furniture set, a Walmart Plus subscription. It was all there. Not just fraud, not just identity theft. She hadn't borrowed pieces of my life. She'd constructed her own with them, used my name as scaffolding. I checked my credit score. It had dropped 112 points. One of my oldest cards, a backup card I rarely touched, had been maxed and was now in collections. I hadn't even known. My hands felt like ice, but my teeth were clenched so tightly it gave me a headache. I opened a new Word document. At the top I typed, "Cease and desist, Eileen S. Kravitz." I didn't stop writing. The keys clicked furiously under my fingers, filling the silence. I wrote until I'd listed every account number, every stolen transaction, every shipping address that wasn't mine but was used in my name. I didn't just write one letter. I wrote two. One was addressed to Mara, the other to Velma, because one had committed the fraud, but the other had enabled it, pretended not to see, made excuses, looked away when it suited her. That's betrayal too. The next morning, gray light filled the sky. It had rained sometime during the night, and everything looked softer, quieter. I drove across town in silence, no music, no calls, just the steady hum of the engine and the sealed envelope on the passenger seat. When I got to my parents' house, I didn't park in the driveway. I didn't ring the bell. I walked up to the porch, placed the envelope carefully on the bench, and walked back to my car without looking behind me. They didn't deserve to see my face. Not anymore. Back home, I took the second envelope, the one for Mara, and placed it in my mailbox, flagged for certified delivery. I clicked "Notify me when delivered" on the USPS site and shut the browser window. Then I made chamomile tea, sat on the couch. Clementine, my cat, curled up beside me like she always did when something in the air shifted. She knew. Animals always do. I breathed deeply, finally able to exhale without the weight of dread in my chest. For the first time in weeks, my body didn't hurt, not from the surgery, not from the stress, not from holding it all in. I wasn't waiting for a phone call or apology. I wasn't bracing for someone to justify what they did or try to gaslight me into thinking it wasn't that bad. They had always told me that love meant not making waves, that family meant forgiveness even when it was undeserved. But they drowned me in silence and expectation. Now I was the one drawing the boundary. I was done treading water. I leaned back, let the warmth of the tea settle in my chest, and whispered to the empty room, I'm not angry. I'm done. No calls came, no text messages, no panic, just silence. And for the first time, it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like peace. They had taken so much time, money, trust, but not this. This line in the sand, it was mine. The silence held for 4 days. 4 days of stillness, of no calls, no texts, no half-hearted apologies wrapped in concern, just the kind of hollow quiet that comes not from remorse, but calculation. I recognized it. Then, on the 5th day, it arrived, not as a phone call, not even as a message typed out in haste, but as a card. Real paper, heavy stock, cream-colored with slightly frayed edges, as if handled too many times before being dropped into the mailbox. Inside, written in Velma's tight, slanted cursive, were 6 words, Sunday dinner. Family reset. 6 p.m. No salutation. No we miss you. No acknowledgement of what had been said or done. Just an order disguised as an invitation, a reset, as if everything that happened could be filed under misunderstanding, as if all it would take was one meal to erase a cease and desist, 20 years of gaslighting, and a digital paper trail thicker than Velma's Thanksgiving gravy. I stared at the card for a full minute before placing it face down on the counter. I already knew what it meant. This wasn't peace. This wasn't even a truce. It was damage control. They weren't inviting me to heal. They were calling me back to formation, and they assumed I'd obey. Sunday arrived cold and sharp, the sky a pale blue stretched thin over bare trees. I dressed carefully, navy slacks, a gray cashmere sweater, no jewelry, no makeup beyond concealer and lip balm. Neutral, unprovoking, my version of armor, the kind you wear when you're expected to perform civility under siege. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same. It always did, a little too neat, like someone had walked through just minutes before, fluffing pillows and straightening curtains to make sure it looked presentable. Velma's standard. Inside, everything was curated to project normalcy. The table was dressed to impress, wine glasses shined under dim lighting, cloth napkins folded into perfect triangles, and a roast sat steaming on a silver tray at the center like it had been waiting for a Better Homes and Gardens shoot. It was all performance. Mara greeted me at the door with a smirk, eyes scanning me like a TSA agent. She leaned in and kissed my cheek like we hadn't exchanged legal documents the week before. Dennis gave me a slight nod, just enough to say I'm here, not enough to say he cared. Joni didn't say a word. She hovered near the hallway entrance, arms crossed, expression tight. Velma swept in from the kitchen, her apron neatly tied, her voice forced cheerful. Let's eat while it's hot. We sat. We chewed in silence so brittle it might have cracked under a whisper. I waited, gave them a chance to speak first. They didn't take it, so I did. Did you even read the letter? Forks paused mid-motion. Mara didn't lift her eyes. Dennis focused hard on his plate. Velma blinked slowly, then exhaled like I'd knocked over a vase. You're really going to burn down this family over a few bills? Mara said, casually vicious, like she was asking about a parking ticket. Velma followed up with a sigh that could have iced a glass of tea. We thought this was just a phase, that you'd cool off. There it was, the old narrative that my anger was a passing storm, something hormonal, temporary, unreasonable. I see, I said calmly, setting my fork down. So that's why you told Aunt Laura I was seeing a psychiatrist for paranoia. Velma didn't flinch. You've been acting unpredictable. Unpredictable, the go-to word for any woman who stops saying yes. Mara chimed in, tone laced with syrup and spite. Honestly, you're scaring Joni. I looked across the table. Joni was still staring at her plate, her bottom lip trembling. She's scared, I said gently, because you told her I was dangerous, not because I am. Silence. But it wasn't empty. It was full of guilt, of fear, of the weight of truth no one wanted to carry. They didn't deny it. They didn't defend it. They didn't say a single word. I didn't stay for dessert. That night, while Joni was in the guest bathroom, the water running, the hum of the shower drowning out the world, she left her tablet on the kitchen island, unlocked. I walked past it at first, then paused. The screen was still lit. A notification blinked across the top, group chat, Kravitz Core. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. A single swipe. Just one. I didn't mean to open it, but I did. And what I found wasn't a conversation. It was a blueprint, a playbook, a real-time dissection of my resistance. Mara, she thinks a cease and desist will scare us. Velma, let her throw her tantrum. She'll come back. She always does. Dennis, we raised her too soft. Mara again, she's acting like she's Oprah just because she filed some papers. I stared at the screen until the glow dimmed and shut off. Then I turned on my laptop. 20 pages, screenshots, timestamps, chat history. All of it printed in black and white. I didn't annotate it. Didn't write a cover letter. Just one thing on the front page in thick black Sharpie: this is why I'm done. Before the sun rose, I drove across town. The streets were dark and still. The only sounds were the distant hum of early traffic and the faint buzz of street lamps overhead. I pulled up in front of Velma's house, got out, slid the envelope into her mailbox, closed the lid. I didn't leave a note, no signature, no message explaining why. Because it wasn't about getting them to understand anymore. It was about removing their ability to pretend they didn't know. They never thought I'd fight back. Now they're not just stunned I did. They're scared I might win. The week that followed was quiet, not peaceful, just unnaturally still. No texts, no calls, not even a snide comment from one of the cousins who usually made it their job to check in through vague Facebook replies. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel like resolution, just a pause, the eye of the storm. I knew better than to think it was over. The winds had shifted direction, not disappeared. Then on Wednesday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Joni. She stood on my porch with her backpack slung over one shoulder, her sneakers untied, and a sheepish look that didn't belong on a 12-year-old's face. Hi, she said. Mom said she had a dentist thing. Asked if you could watch me. The message had come from Mara earlier, short and vague. No apology, just a request. I said yes. Not for Mara's sake, but because Joni was the only person in that house who hadn't weaponized her relationship with me. Joni curled up on the couch while I made popcorn. Cartoons buzzed from the television, something bright and loud that didn't quite match the heavy air in the room. Her hair was damp, probably from gym class, and she wrapped herself in my throw blanket like she was trying to disappear. Midway through her snack, she said it quietly, like a secret she wasn't sure she was supposed to keep. Mom said not to tell you she used your name again. I froze, not visibly. My hand stayed in my lap, but my stomach dropped. My pulse pounded in my teeth. She said it's easier if you don't know. Joni added, eyes still on the screen. She also said not to talk about the phone or the iPad or the movie thing. What movie thing? I asked, keeping my voice calm. The account? Netflix or Hulu or something? It has your name on it. I thought it was a gift. That last word hit like a gut punch. Gift. Like she believed I had given her mother permission to keep taking pieces of my identity, wrapping them up as generosity. Joni's voice cracked. Was it not? I leaned in and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. No, sweetie, it wasn't. She blinked slowly. Oh. And that was it. She turned back to the television, a cartoon fox yelling about friendship or some other innocent thing. I didn't press. I didn't need to. I stepped into the hallway where I let myself exhale. My lungs worked overtime, struggling to keep up with the pressure that had ballooned in my chest. It wasn't just about stolen money anymore, or the accounts, or even the lies. It was about the rot, the slow poison they had started feeding Joni, the way they folded her into their games and covered it with sugar. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to pretend I didn't know what I had to do. But by sunrise, I did. At 10 a.m. I drove to my parents' house. No text, no warning, no performance. Velma opened the door in slippers, her expression surprised. You didn't say you were coming. I don't need permission anymore. I stepped inside. Mara sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Dennis was on the couch, half asleep, the TV muted but still playing. No one looked guilty, just irritated that I'd arrived without notice. I know what you told Joni, I said, standing in the middle of the room. Mara didn't even look up. She talks too much. She tells the truth, I said. That's more than I can say for you. Dennis mumbled something I didn't catch. I didn't ask him to repeat it. I stepped forward and placed a thick envelope on the table. This one wasn't symbolic. It was documentation, explicit, dated. If I see one more charge, one more subscription, one more dollar tied to my name, I will take this to court. No hesitation. No guilt. Delma stood, folding her arms. You wouldn't do that to your own sister. My voice didn't waver. She already did it to me. I'm just finishing what she started. No one argued. No yelling. Just a silence that said they knew I wasn't bluffing. I left without slamming the door. Outside, the sunlight felt different, warm and heavy, like something had lifted. I took a long breath, not to steady myself, but to feel something again, something that belonged to me. By the time I got home, my phone buzzed. Joni, I told the truth. Are you mad? I stared at the message, then typed back slowly, no, I'm proud of you. No emoji, no extra words, just the truth. They say blood is thicker than water, but gasoline is thicker too. And I wasn't the one holding the match. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped pretending it still connected us. A month passed, not in a rush, not in silence, just naturally, like when winter thaws and you don't even notice the ice melting until the birds start singing again. The letter came on a Tuesday morning, certified, stamped, sealed in the kind of envelope that used to make my hands shake. But not this time. I sliced it open with a butter knife from the kitchen drawer, sat at my tiny breakfast table, and read slowly, line by line. The insurance policy cancelled. The fraudulent credit card closed. The court accepted the cease and desist order as valid and enforceable. My name was mine again. No apology, no acknowledgement from anyone involved. Just paperwork and quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just inhaled, exhaled, and felt something loosen in my chest I didn't realize was still tight. Later that weekend I walked to the farmer's market in downtown Asheville. My new place was smaller but with tall windows and light that didn't ask questions. I had a little corner bookshelf now, a teal rug, and a second-hand armchair I picked up for $40 that fit my body like it had been waiting for me. At the market I bought a bundle of lavender from a girl who reminded me of Joni, all freckles and nervous smiles. A golden retriever licked an ice cream cone out of a toddler's hand while her parents laughed. There was a man playing guitar on the corner. And even though he was off-key, people dropped coins in his case anyway. Nobody knew me here. Nobody whispered about me, pitied me, or expected anything except a smile or a dollar or a moment of patience at the register. It didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like permission. Back home I reorganized some boxes in the hallway closet and came across an old shoebox labeled family. I sat cross-legged on the living room rug and opened it slowly. Photos, my 5th grade school picture with the crooked bangs, a birthday card from Dad that said proud of you in thick pen, a crayon drawing Joni had made of us holding hands, smiling. I didn't throw anything away, but I didn't keep them close either. I put the lid back on and set the box on the highest shelf, high enough that I'd have to want it badly to pull it down again. Some memories aren't weights, but they're not wings either. That night I journaled for the first time in weeks. You weren't overreacting, I wrote. You were the only one reacting at all. You weren't too sensitive. You were surrounded by people who refused to feel. You weren't difficult. You were honest. And then finally, you weren't the problem. You were the one who said something. I closed the notebook, set it beside my tea, and watched the sun start to dip below the Blue Ridge skyline. No fireworks, no dramatic ending, just warm light stretching long across the hardwood floor. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. No one controlled me anymore, not through guilt, not through silence. Some people spend their lives waiting for an apology that never comes. I stopped waiting. I chose peace instead. Some families teach you love. Mine taught me boundaries. And for that, I'm finally free. Before I let you go, I want to share something, not just as someone who lived through this, but as someone who finally walked out on the other side. If you're watching this and any part of it felt familiar, maybe not the car or the credit cards, but the feeling of being used, dismissed, or made to feel too much for simply setting boundaries, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're just finally tired of carrying what was never yours to begin with. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, about trust. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who expect you to stay silent just so they can stay comfortable. I didn't get justice through revenge. I found peace through truth. And once you choose peace, the kind that doesn't require explanation, no one can take that from you.